Hi guys, it's Kassi, IBCLC and new mom, and we just crossed the line of 1 year of lactation, and I wanted to stop by to share a little bit about my journey and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. So let's dive in. The gist of it is that things were really hard in the beginning, and I'm going to try to keep this short, but I do want to share some of our biggest challenges just in case that it can help any of you overcome those challenges. And I've shared a little bit of my story on social media, but I haven't shared it yet on my YouTube channel. So basically what happened right after birth was that my baby had a really hard time latching. I do have, and I knew ahead of time that I have inverted nipples, and I thought that that was going to present a challenge, which it did. Actually, she was able to latch great on the left side. After a while, we did use the nipple shield for a couple of days, and then she was just able to figure out the left side, but the right side was another story. She never did latch on the right side for the first about 4 months. Every time she did, it was so excruciatingly painful that I just chose to pump that side exclusively. So I had a baby who was 100% nourished on one side, while I 100% exclusively pumped the other for the first 4 months, which was exhausting. And at some points, I among other challenges that we had, I was like, this is not sustainable, and did definitely consider switching to exclusive pumping, which is also no joke, and it's really hard, especially sticking to a schedule of pumping every 3 hours so that you get those 8 times in a day when the baby would be eating, and then getting up in the middle of the night to pump is so hard. Oof, especially when you have a sleeping partner next to you and all you want to do is curl up and go right back to sleep. Other than the latching only on one side for the first part of our journey, another thing that we went through was a tongue tie. And I may make a separate video about how we went through the whole process of getting that revised, but I will tell you, I tried to work through the tongue tie, which I suspected was there for the first 6 weeks. And at the 6-week mark, I just realized that she was even not only having trouble with the latching and gassiness, and she was just uncomfortable all the time. She had some green frothy poops, and then I noticed that every time I did try to introduce a bottle around 6 weeks that she was choking and gagging and leaking milk, and I just knew that if I couldn't feed her comfortably at my breast, and if I couldn't feed her with the bottle, we were going to be in trouble. So that's when I set up an appointment to have her evaluated by a pediatric dentist that I really trusted. And yeah, we took her in for the first visit. She had the revision done. She had a tongue tie effectively, and it helped at first, and then we went about 3 days without any latching at all. And I was trying to latch for like 45 minutes, which I don't recommend. Then pumping, then supplementing, which we call triple feeding. It was so hard. I did 3 days of triple feeding and realized that now I understand completely why we call triple feeding plan a short-term solution, because it's not sustainable. It's really exhausting mentally. Mentally, it's exhausting. So I almost threw a party. This was around Thanksgiving. I think it was the day after Thanksgiving that she finally latched. After the tongue tie, she finally latched again, and it was fine. I don't think that it was an overnight fix for sure. We were still doing the stretching exercises and lots of suck training. She did start to get better with a lot of the things, but latching was still really uncomfortable for me as she learned to reuse her tongue and all of those things. During that time, I did have a small bout with mastitis and plugged ducts. And thankfully I did not need to take any antibiotics because of it, but I did call my OB when I noticed the first signs of the mastitis, because the weekend was coming up and I just wanted to have some antibiotics on hand. in case I needed them. Thankfully, I was able to work through the early signs of mastitis, and I didn't develop any fevers or any more worrisome symptoms, and it did resolve itself. A few weeks down the road, I had another similar bout where I just had some clogged ducts that didn't go away, and almost considered taking the antibiotics again, but again didn't develop fevers and was able to work through. And finally, after an entire day of having that full feeling of being unable to empty the milk, was finally able to get some relief. At about 4 months, my baby, for some reason, taught herself to suck her thumb. And when she started sucking her thumb, she finally was able to latch a little bit more comfortably for me. And it's crazy because I work with a lot of families, and I know that the beginning is difficult. I never expected to be in pain from breastfeeding for 4 entire months, but was so thankful after things really started to improve. I really did consider quitting in the first 4 months because it was miserable. I really wanted to enjoy the bond with my baby and found myself wishing away every feed because it was just so uncomfortable for me. So thankfully, around 4 months, she figured it out. Unfortunately, around 4 months is also when I had to start going back to work, which I was really lucky because I was able to push it out a little. I was supposed to go back after 12 weeks, but cut back hours at work and was able to have the privilege to do that, thankfully. And it was still really hard to go back to doing 12-hour shifts at the hospital and pumping and trying to maintain my supply when baby girl had just figured out how to feed properly. So that was another tough thing, that going back to work was another challenge that we faced early on. I did have a little bit of an oversupply, which makes sense to me because I had a baby who was exclusively feeding on one side. So that one side had all the milk she needed. And then I was pumping the other side just as often as she was eating to protect my supply. And I ended up with kind of a crazy freezer stash, which was more than I needed. And thankfully I was able to donate to a milk bank, and that was an amazing thing to do with my milk. And I do plan to make another video about milk donation and what that process was like. And just to say, through all these challenges, even though I am a lactation consultant and I know so many things about lactation, I did find myself needing to work with a lactation consultant. Actually a couple. I thankfully had so many colleagues that I was able to call on and ask questions to, and just sometimes even just talk me through the emotional part of all the challenges that we were going through. Let's move on to the lessons that I learned from breastfeeding. And that's why I have these notes here, because I want to make sure that I don't skip anything. And for those of you who find yourself struggling in the early days, I really want to share the lessons that I learned. And the first lesson is that it's okay to ask for help. Even myself, being an expert in lactation, found myself really needing help. Lactation is it's really challenging physically, it's really challenging emotionally and spiritually. So if you find yourself struggling with lactation, please, please, please don't be afraid to ask for help. The second lesson that I learned was that I just wish that every person who wants to provide human milk to their baby had some form of preparation prenatally. I just really wish that if you plan on giving milk to your baby, take a class, do research, watch videos, have a prenatal consult. Prenatal consult could really help you identify challenges that you may encounter in your early days and the early part of your lactation journey and help you overcome that, and also just have a point of contact with a lactation consultant that might be able to help you once your baby does arrive, if you are to experience any challenges. Another lesson that I learned is that just when you start to figure things out, everything changes. So when we figured out all right, we got rid of the nipple shield, and then we still needed it on the other side, but then it was really painful. And then we figured out the latch, and it finally wasn't painful at 4 months, and then I had to go back to work. And then babies grow and their needs change. And then she turned 6 months and we needed to introduce solids, and it's constantly changing. Babies are growing, your body's changing, your hormones are adjusting so much. There's so many changes in the first year of being a parent that lactation, of course, is going to change with you, and you're going to have new questions at each stage and each phase. And yeah, I think don't expect that you're going to know everything right away, and don't be afraid to ask for help, even if you're well into your journey, as new problems or new questions arise. And kind of last but not least, lactation, as is parenthood, as is pregnancy, as is the delivery of your baby, lactation is unpredictable, and your journey might not end up looking exactly like you hoped it would look, and that's really okay. I definitely didn't think that I was going to be triple feeding or pumping one side completely and feeding baby on one side completely. Things change, that's okay. Some people end up exclusively pumping when they weren't planning on it, and that is okay too. It doesn't mean you failed. If you end up with a low supply and need to give your baby half human milk, half formula, you haven't failed. There's always different forms that your journey can take, and so many different ways that it can look. And just because your journey doesn't look the way you had hoped or planned for it to, doesn't mean that you failed. Every little drop of human milk that your baby gets is so beneficial and is giving them all the benefits that we know that human milk provides to our babies. So I just want every parent out there to hear that you're not a failure. And honestly, it's never too late to try again. So whatever that means for you, if you've been exclusively pumping for a week because your latch was just so painful you needed a break, but you are a week or two into exclusive pumping and you decide that you want to try to latch your baby again, that's great. It's never too late, and it's never all or nothing. If you've been giving formula because you have a low supply and you just were overwhelmed when your baby was little and decided to switch to formula, but in a couple weeks or a couple months you decide that you want to try pumping again or try to latch your baby again, it's really never too late for that either. If you have the determination and it's really important to you, just find some good support, and hopefully you can find some peace with it all. Even if you're not going to be 100% where you would hope to be, maybe you can get a little inch closer to having your lactation journey look like what you had hoped it would look like, and just kind of feel at peace. And when I'm talking about peace, I mean really that like emotional and spiritual part of it, because for those of us who want this experience and want this bonding with our babies, that is really what it's all about. And if you can find peace with your journey, wow, that's my goal for you. So anyway, I hope shedding some light on the challenges and the lessons that I learned from my lactation journey was helpful to you. I hope that you all find the satisfaction and the bonding and all that you want from your journey. And remember, don't forget to ask for help if you need it. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. And if you're interested in working with me, you can check out my website and just request a visit with me. I would be happy to connect with you prenatally or postnatally and just be an extra support person for you. So take care, everyone. I will talk to you soon. And don't forget to subscribe below if you want more lactation related videos. Talk to you soon, guys. Bye.